And hang on, I have to pull up my.
Are there more people in the waiting room?
4 people entered the waiting room. Okay. Oh, I have to keep that admit all. Coming in. Thank you. We'll just wait a couple more seconds and see if anybody else is
Okay.
coming in.
I know Andy from my group wasn't sure if he could make it. He might be late if he does. I guess.
Yeah, he actually sent me an email that they're doing some sort of paper negotiations this evening.
Yeah, they're doing some.
Here comes Charlie. All right.
Tim Redmond said he was not going to be here either.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Janine's not coming either.
Okay.
So Zoom blew up on us there for a minute, huh?
Oh. Well, all of a sudden it was asking me for a verification code that I had no access to, so I could not host the meeting. So
That's kind of difficult, isn't it?
Exactly. Okay, and now I want to keep. Yeah, if anybody else sees anybody come into the meeting room, just let me know, just in case it doesn't. For some reason, it doesn't. My other screens, it comes out when somebody's in the waiting room, and this one isn't. So, all right. So, adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any revisions or additions? Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Gerd, do you want to move adoption? And
So moved.
okay. So
I'll support that.
support from Charlie. All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? All right. Communications and correspondence. I have not received any. Has anyone else? Okay. I think climate and resilience, who they wanted to speak tonight wasn't available. So hopefully we can get that scheduled for our May meeting. And on to public. Oh, Gerd, did you want to say something?
Nope. That's basically the guest. Andy's the one in contact, so.
Okay.
We'll have to talk to him.
Okay, will do. And so we'll move on to public comment. We do have some public here. Would anyone from the public like to say anything? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and talk if you'd like. All right, we will do public comment right before we approve the minutes too, after we go through our business. Okay, moving on. All right, we have our representatives from our Scio team here this evening, and as each of the working groups are kind of finishing up kind of draft status of their goals, recommendations, and so forth. We thought it would be a good time for the Scio team to sort of talk about what we're trying to plan to accomplish this summer. And we have some of the team is going to be working remotely, and we have several of them that are going to be in person. So we have a kind of a strong presence over the summer. And what we're each of them has also aligned themselves with as a resource and kind of with each of our groups. And so we'll kind of go over that tonight, along with the sort of the timeline of what we're trying to accomplish. And sort of now that the working groups have kind of done quite a bit of research and have a product, a draft product, the team is going to work on looking at that. And it's really going to go into sort of a dialogue between the working groups and the Cs teams as they then go out and help. And we're going to help get contact information and so forth for them to do put together a kind of a community outreach plan. So we're going to be continuing to work together, but there's going to be a little bit more leadership kind of from the Cs teams, and it's going to be up to each of the working groups and the task force as a whole to support their efforts as they help us do that community engagement. But anyway, that's sort of the big picture. And I did want to say that I hope everyone, we're incredibly fortunate to have this team. And this is their master's project. I mean, they get grades and credit for this. So it is a super serious, important thing. And so they will fail if we do not support our efforts. And we won't have, heck, we have a great team of master's students working with us. So I hope everyone will definitely welcome them with open arms and give them the support that they need and deserve, and that we really, really are grateful for their work. So,
right, and to just add to that a little bit, so we're working on a timeline that, like, this is 3 semesters of their graduate program, and their obligation right now is to lay out a project plan and lay out a timeline. So the students are working on that, and the task force leadership, Jan, Jacqueline, myself, are thinking through the timeline from the task force point of view, also aligned with the work in the county. So that's been a really iterative process, but what it's going to do for us is put some real stakes in the ground. Where do we hope to be? What's the primary focus this summer? Where do we hope to be in the fall by the end of 2022? And then we've got a whole nother 5 months together. So that timeline I would characterize as maybe 75% done. It's going through iterations with C's faculty and advisors. So that'll be a really important roadmap for all of us. The other important piece that Jan is leading is, so we've got our 5 work groups, who's in them, kind of the point person. We're going to fill out that matrix and identify which student is connected, who's the primary interface. And then we'll also add the township boards and commissions most aligned with that work. So we're really building a very explicit network of some primary working relationships. Does that make sense? All right, just wanting to make this really tangible. So we've just got a really good working toward a climate action plan for the township.
Yeah, so I wanted the C students to have a chance to sort of talk a little bit about, kind of the, you could even, if you wanted to share the timeline and share, I think all of them have sent emails to the group introducing folks that they're working with, but maybe not everyone saw those. So why don't you just go ahead and take it away for several minutes and sort of go through kind of where you are and where we're going.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for kind of giving us that introduction, Jan. And like she said, we've, kind of each of us 5 have aligned ourselves with a task force or a working group. So I can go over that too really quickly, just to make sure if you didn't see the email, just so you're aware. So like, I'm going to be working most closely with the transportation group that I've reached out to, and also the energy and buildings group. I know Zoe and Whitney are going to be working with the ecosystem and natural, or the food systems group. Anna is going to be working with the resilience and emergency preparedness group. And then Kyle's working most closely with the materials and waste. And so I think our team's vision, especially like for the summer, is pretty ambitious. We have a lot planned. I know the working groups have been working really hard to kind of put together these goals and strategy. And so we're really looking at connecting with you guys, getting those items, and then turning that into something that we can bring to the community in terms of surveying and kind of getting feedback through that process, which we're going to be doing throughout the summer. And then also looking at interviewing or just meeting with the stakeholders that you guys have also listed in those documents who might be most interested or have a lot of feedback that we're going to be interested in. I think we're going to do 2 rounds of surveying. I don't want to get too into the nitty gritty of the summer, and I know it's probably going to change, but that's kind of our plan so far, is to have 2 major phases of community engagement. We're going to be bringing that feedback back to this team with recommendations that'll hopefully end up in the climate action plan that we're developing. I'm trying to think of anything else. I don't know, Zoe, if you have anything to add.
No, I think you got it.
Perfect. And yeah, like Jan said, some of us are going to be working remotely more on the back end stuff, and we'll be, meeting on Zoom with folks. And then we're going to also have 2 of us are going to be staying in the Ann Arbor, Scio area. So they'll be able to meet in person with people, maybe do some focus groups, kind of meet with different stakeholders group. And we're going to kind of figure out what that looks like. But like she said, we are going to, keep in contact via email. If you have anything that you have ideas around that you think would be helpful for us, we're more than happy to hear it. You have all of our email addresses. But yeah, I don't want to take up too much time. I think that kind of sums up where we're headed. And I'm sure it'll be, a roller coaster this summer as we try to get all that done.
Yeah. So yeah, just to follow up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that sort of directory of working groups and add the student contact information. And the other thing is, I know we are building the township has some email addresses, but we're trying to build a list of HOAs, the homeowners associations. Dana has said he'd be, along with Tim Redmond, kind of be our, farmer outreach. Charlie, I was really impressed looking at the data. 10% of our housing units are Scio farms. I mean, that's a huge segment of the community. And Charlie, you're the obvious kind of point of contact for that group, because there really isn't a homeowners association there as much as the management company hasn't been real forthcoming in allowing the township to kind of have access to that group of people. So hopefully, you can be our point of contact there. So if anyone else is a member of a homeowners association, and you can provide contact information for that group, or anyone else has just an informal neighborhood network, we need to build that framework so that it's easier for us to reach out to people within the community. We have the DDA. I don't know if there's some other business groups in Scio, et cetera. So we're gathering any and all ideas as far as how do we network within the community. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Western Washtenaw Business Association.
Thank you, Charlie.
And just as a point of history, the Scio Farms did have a homeowners association a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I was the chair of that for quite some time. But excuse me, it really just died out after a while. Most meetings, apathy was the real problem. Sometimes the people showing up for the meeting outnumbered the people that were sitting there that were the officers of the group. Mm-hmm. And then when we did have a lot of people and packed the room, it was because a few residents got people worked up about thinking their water bill was incorrect. And then my role turned more into zookeeper than chair of it. And then COVID hit. So that stopped us. Then they rebuilt the clubhouse and that stopped us. And then I talked to the manager and he said he doesn't particularly want to participate. in those meetings, and they were one of the big features of it. So it just sort of died on the vine, unfortunately.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, so hopefully you can, kind of, maybe it can recreate itself as a group that can, at least get gathered around for some input.
Well, there was another group that formed, and consider these were really social organizations, because a homeowner association in Scio Farms really has no authority. They're only in an advocacy position, but they have no authority. And that was part of the problem, because a lot of people expected that we did. So I constantly had to explain, we can't make management do anything. We can take things to them, but we don't really have any power. There was a period of time, I'm trying to think when that was, that another group did form. I think it was kind of based on Neighborhood Watch somewhat, but it appears that they have kind of dropped off too. So,
okay. All right.
Anyway.
Well, hopefully you can at least hopefully have an outreach mechanism that hopefully can draw some people together for that.
We do have a Facebook page.
Okay, great. Garrett, you were going to say something?
Me?
Garrett was, I think.
Yeah, my mute button kept disappearing. But no, I was just a couple of neighborhood associations. I'm in the Uplands. They have next door pages. So social media was going to be the other suggestion. I have contacts at least for the Uplands and Harbor Point, which is my old association. So,
okay. Yeah. So if people could email Kathy so we can get those documented in the minutes, even just do it right. That would be great. And if you know of, so at least within this group, we can come up with several points of contact then. That's awesome. That's what we want to do. Just keep, building that. All right. Yes, Kathy. You're on mute.
Unmute. Okay, sorry. One other possibility, I'm just thinking, I'm in Liberty Hills, and I could do it for my neighborhood, but I'm thinking that other neighborhoods like ours that tried to go for a SAD at one time or another might have a contact person on record that's already that kind of a person.
That's a really good idea, because a lot of those SAD groups had email contacts. Yeah. Okay, great. Will you make sure that goes in the minutes?
Sure.
For the students, SAD is a special assessment district that a neighborhood might choose. It's a process for how a neighborhood might fund improvements on a private road. So that's the SAD acronym.
Thanks, Jane.
Yeah. And I'll email too, because I have a pretty good email list from our SAD that never went anywhere. Okay. All right. Let's see. Do we have any? We don't have anyone from the DDA here. Do we have anyone that participates in the DDA at all? Western Washtenaw. Right. Okay. Great. Then the next item on the agenda is actually talking a little bit about we had whether or not we want to do this, but anyway, one of the recommendations that we talked about from the Energy and Buildings group was to draft a resolution that could go before the Planning Commission, and hopefully then the Planning Commission would pass that along to the Board of Trustees. And that resolution would have to do with sort of, one part is, saying that we are in a climate emergency, and adopt the goals that that Washington County has, which would be carbon neutrality for township operations by 2030, and carbon neutrality for the community by 2035. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that and see if that's something that this group wants to take on. And if we do, there are multiple resolutions. I think Ann Arbor Township passed one. We can get the one that the county passed and so forth. And I was thinking if there were a few people that would volunteer to kind of work on that resolution, and then we could, run it by this, kind of email to the task force members, and then we can present it to the Planning Commission. So I guess one is, what are people's thoughts on doing that? Is that something folks think is important? And then two, if so, volunteers. Gerd.
Well, I just had basically two thoughts, mostly on feasibility. I mean, the operations be carbon neutral by 2030 seems very feasible to me. I'm just questioning the community by 2035. Do we have, I mean, we can pass a resolution, but would we be able to put a roadmap out? Because I would think, I wouldn't want to do a resolution if we can't provide a roadmap. That's my 2 cents.
Mhm.
And I'm concerned, how do we measure? How can we tell if we've met the goal?
Okay, 2 comments on that. One, Resilient Washtenaw is doing a greenhouse gas inventory that the county will continue to measure. It is not clear whether or not that will be done township by township or not, but that's the request that has gone into them to be able to do it township by township. And a lot of it is determined on whether DTE can give them the utility information, township by township. The second one about a roadmap, I think that's, that's kind of what we're embarking on here. The county roadmap and climate action plan to meet their goals should be done by the end of the year. The idea of this task force would be incorporating, obviously there's some things that we can piggyback on the county and piggyback on from A20. And it would be up to us then to kind of finalize our plan next spring before our Cs team leaves us, so that we would have a roadmap going in that direction. Those are at least the answers that I have right now. Other people's thoughts.
Are these goals aspirational? Meaning, if we don't achieve these goals, there's no direct consequence?
I guess the consequence is if we don't meet the goals, as well as the rest of the world, we're in a boatload of issues.
Of course, I guess let me clarify. Is there any enforcement mechanism for these goals?
No, there's no enforcement mechanism. Okay.
Gotcha.
And the other thing is, it's really interesting if you look at the way the university has done their goals. There's carbon neutrality with offsets, and there's carbon neutrality, within your community. And all of the goals, including Ann Arbor's, which is a very ambitious goal, has a big chunk of offsets that they're planning on. You can look at that positively. You can also say that's the way a lot of corporations are going too, is they're offsetting their emissions rather than trying to reduce them, obviously.
Is there a way we can generate offsets and sell them?
Yeah.
We got lots of land. Let's plant some more trees and sell the carbon rights. We're Ann Arbor area. Arbor's in the name.
Yeah. There are some, that's how DTE did some of their green gas stuff in the UP. But,
Well, that and U of M, I mean, they own like 15,000 acres throughout the state.
mhm,
So is MSU.
mhm, yeah.
A lot of that's trees.
Mhm. So other thoughts, Celeste?
Yes.
Oh, you just went on mute again.
Uh,
There you go.
did you want me to respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have a response. I've been
Okay.
listening.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be nice if we had more consequences, but I don't see that happening. But I do think the momentum between all of the counties and townships will be helpful.
Mhm.
I think it also reinforces the importance of this community outreach. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a community, right? And success in lowering the carbon footprint in Scio Township is going to be a function of folks getting more energy efficient, finding some more renewable energy sources. There's lots of ways we need to engage our residents, our business community, and so it's why the focus for the students is so primarily on the outreach, because that's about the engagement and the buy-in. And then hopefully the plan is like a menu, just a whole lot of ideas for the community to get engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And like, go.
I agree. I'm just also, I mean, the offsets aside, it's also, I think if you're really going to meet the goals, even worldwide, you got to start getting a bit creative. Yes. You know, it's like, I remember I was out in Colorado last fall, both for business. And, you know, because I know there's been a couple articles like Cranes Detroit about farmers here in Michigan selling, you know, leasing rights to put solar panels on their land. And, you know, you go out to Colorado and there's a bunch of solar panels on the land and the sheep are hanging out underneath the solar panels, you know, because it's shade from the sun. So it's a double win for the farmers.
Right.
You know, it's stuff like that, you know, where we can create more win-wins that will allow us to get to the goal. Because if you're just talking penalties, yeah, you'll lose political support real fast.
And I think a really good example of that is the really impressive work the Land Preservation Commission is doing with these really significant parcels that are getting put into a conservation easement, and then that land becoming local organic farming, right? That's just a great agriculture, and how we grow food and keep it local is a very big puzzle piece in all of this. So I think we've got to really leverage some of the foundational pieces that are already in the township, like LPC.
And another thing that I think the resolution does is, I mean, if adopted especially at the Board of Trustees level, adopted at the Planning Commission level, it means that the policies and the master plan and so forth, you know, take on climate becomes an important element in all of those things and in the decisions that are made. At the Board of Trustees level, then climate also starts being a metric that you look at for your purchasing, your policies, your purchasing, your budgeting, all of those things. So right now, there really isn't anything that says you need to take into account all of these climate adaptation mitigation strategies and carbon neutrality strategies in our governance. So that's the other kind of important aspect of a resolution like this.
The resolution that you'd like to see, do you have examples of the kinds of things you want covered and the format that you wanted in?
Yeah, I've been collecting a few of them, and I guess what I'll do is I'll email them to folks and put them in the Google Drive, and most of them have certain elements of, why, the whereas, and why it's urgent, and then the resolution pieces have to do with, actions like continuing, the sustainability task force and community engagement, certain more tailored pieces around the resolution.
So it's sort of going to include our framework plan light in it.
Mhm.
And just kind of an overview. Okay.
Right. And we already mentioned the work of the task forces, if you will, climate action plan, the environmental task force, I forget what we called it, frankly, that it would automatically be incorporated once approved by the Planning Commission. It would automatically be a part of our master plan. So that is at least in the works right now, as far as referring to it in the master plan.
Okay. One thing, depending on the language, should we ultimately be looking to tie our recommendations that this group's going to be putting out some way back up to that resolution as well?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's important.
So
Yep. So there's some teeth or buy-in and all that. Yeah. To the plan. Mm-hmm.
So when does this need to be done by?
I'd like to get it, for our main meeting, have, sort of a draft and have people looking at it, so that between now, in our main meeting, we have something that people are, think is a good document, and we can kind of move forward with it.
Well, I'd be willing to help with it. Anyway.
That's great. Thank you, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else want to work on it?
I could help Kathy with it as well.
Okay. Yeah. And I will too.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, we'll just start I'll email that group what, sort of and there are a whole variety of models out there. We'll go ahead and do that, and then we can start sort of highlighting what we think is important about putting what would be important in our resolution. And definitely, give Planning Commission members a peek, and Jackie's our Board of Trustees representative, and so kind of not just announce that this is it, but have them take part in the preparation of it too. Bob.
Yes. Were you planning on making this a Google Doc and putting it on the shared drive and inviting comments, even if we didn't volunteer?
Oh, yeah. I think if we have a draft, we will definitely do it that way. And that way, other people can, participate in it too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sort of build consensus as we build the document.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other thoughts? Right. Okay, then we'll go ahead and just kind of wanted to get updates from the group, where I know a couple people have said they need a little bit more time to work on their drafts. If everyone could make sure your current draft gets emailed to Kathy to be incorporated in the minutes, that would be great. and if you could put things together no later than the end of next week, because that's going to be a sort of a working document for the students to start pulling from as they're putting surveys together and so forth, to get actually what they're trying to do is take, kind of what we've come up with, and then design some community engagement, both surveys and sort of discussions and so forth, to be able to get a broader input on what we've come up with. And also they'll be doing a review on, what sorts of things did we not think about, et cetera. So, Garrett, did you have that was a thumbs up, or was that a question? You're on mute.
Nope, I'm not sure where that thumbs up came from. Sorry.
Okay. Celeste is a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll just go through and kind of have people do a kind of a brief update on anything. I really thank people for getting the presentations together and so forth for March 15th. I think that was really good. So maybe if groups have some updates from that point in time, from that presentation, that they'd like to share with the group at all.
From emergency preparedness and resilience, don't have a whole lot. One thing we're just bouncing back and forth between me and Andy right now is just with the EVs, and then even maybe home batteries. The fire department needs different equipment. I know they've already started gaining a lot of that, it sounds like, but it's just something to think about and understand, because if we're going to push them, but there's a different fire hazard risk there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing we're bouncing around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's interesting, because Michigan Economic, I forget what, MEDC.
MEDC. Yep.
Yeah, they're looking for some folks that have done some work on actually looking at lithium batteries and dealing with them within buildings, and just are there any kind of updates to our building codes and the International Fire Code that we need to incorporate to work to, with the amount of batteries that are going to be out in our world. Yeah. And
then the other big thing will be recycling. I mean, there's a number of companies that are really diving into that, but because it's a lot of the material can just be reprocessed and refurbished back for use, but there's a big area.
Okay, Celeste.
So it was really very helpful to do the PowerPoint presentation because we narrowed down, I think, our thoughts pretty concisely. And I guess that's what I would submit to the minutes, because we really haven't had much more progress since then. However, a lot of us have been doing other things this last month. It's been pretty intense. But I think by next week, at least 2 of us will have more finished products, maybe all 3. And I think one of the things that we still need assistance with is we know what kinds of goals we want to put, but we're hesitant in putting a percentage down. So what percentage of pollution do we want to reduce by? What percentage of tree canopy do we want? What percentage of land preservation? What percentage of native gardens or you get the idea. So if the C students are okay with that, we would like to do that and then work with them to do the research on what makes sense. Because right now, I don't think there's enough data out there for us to be definitive. So that's where we're at. And I guess Zoe and Whitney are the two that are going to be working on this. That's great. Thank you. And just email me. We're not really having real meetings because everybody's schedule is bizarre. I'm going to be in Virginia all next week. And Tim's been gone all of the last 2 weeks, and Janine has been gone. We're a little crazy. So we're trying to do it by phone or by one-on-one conversations, and we'll work with you as hard as we can. Thanks.
Oh, Celeste, a reminder, Bill Curry did make the commitment that he'd be glad to review and give feedback on anything. So
he did, but it's the end of the semester, and when we finally get a draft, I would think it would be good to submit him something that's a little bit farther along.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah. And
right now, I think what we've done is we've thrown spaghetti at the wall. Zoe and Whitney, you have our large, that large thing on water, and there's a large thing on environment, and there's something on agriculture, but nothing is really honed down to where it's a real recommendation.
And I agree with you on the metrics piece, because even the energy in buildings, what kind of reductions are we looking at and so forth? We've just sort of said we need more data, and so I think hopefully we'll get some of that from the county. I think emergency preparedness, there's supposed to be developing a whole vulnerability assessment as well, the county. So I think that hopefully we'll get some data from the county. Our Cs team can help us possibly with some data. We can also rely on like Barry Lanick, especially Celeste, and the Land Preservation Group to help, kind of shape what that might look like too.
Right, and here in River Watershed, but I think the roadblock we're running into is we're such a small unit of the overall. Mm-hmm. They have no problem with making a data set for the overall watershed. But when you narrow it down to Scio, it's a little different. And I think some of our recommendations will be more community-based, like the one where we have Scio publish the annual state of the Scio's environment. Things like that, where it's more, we are a filter for some of the ideas that are coming through us from the county or from the watershed or from the land preservation. So we're getting there.
Right.
One question one question I had is, are the C's students going to also help consolidate the recommendation list? Because I know from resilience, a couple of our recommendations actually going to touch on some of the other groups' stuff. Because obviously resilience, we want to make sure the floodplains are preserved, and that's with water and land preservations as well, and stuff like that. So
yeah. And I think, that's a really good point, because we haven't really designated an editor. And we have some money in the budget to finish, put a kind of finishing touch on this, but we will probably have to really think hard. And that's a good point. I think the students can probably point us in a good direction. And how we actually pull all this together and edit it. I think I'm still thinking about that. And so as you're talking to people and so forth, and we can hopefully pull in a few more people to help on the the final document stuff too. But I think the students, community engagement is their core piece, and then helping us kind of put this document together is a part of it, but I'm not expecting them to write it. I think that would be a little over the top, but miracles do happen. So, okay. Any other groups want to give any updates on what they've put together? And I do encourage people to go ahead and the next minutes, we'll compile a lot of these. And Celeste, what we'll do is we'll just send when you're done, we'll just append that to the minutes too. And that will be our kind of working document going forward for community engagement. And, we'll start to sift through and, kind of consolidate some things.
Yeah, for now, I think it's the PowerPoint is the best bet for our minutes.
Okay.
Hopefully by next week you get something a little bit more. So.
Okay. That's great.
I had a question, Jan.
Yes.
Our goals and strategies have largely been finalized since we had that public meeting, but one recent addition is that we added a new goal to kind of expand our scope a little bit to any motorized equipment in the township that's not necessarily transportation based. So mostly it falls into yard equipment, things like lawn mowers,
Leaf
weed
blower.
whackers, portable generators, trying to electrify those things. Just wanted to make sure that we're not overstepping our bounds too much and that it's still reasonable to consider that in the scope of transportation. Okay, cool.
That's fine. That's fine. It's part of, it overlaps with electrification, but that way it won't get left out for sure. And I'm just thinking of maybe we can get in touch with, what is it, Weingarts, and see what kind of electric stuff they can promote, right?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? Because they sell both conventional equipment and electrified equipment. So at the end of the day, they're probably going to want to maintain their business.
But the fact that you'd be offering sort of free marketing for their electrification, is actually a kind of a plus.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Wall Street's already looking at that as a gold mine, just so you know, because usually you electrify your lawnmower. It's got batteries that you swap in and out. What do you buy for your snowblower? The same brand, so you can put in the same batteries. Yeah. And so on and so forth.
Right.
It's exactly same when you buy your power tools already.
Right.
Yeah,
and, it's really
absolutely. And these are the.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we just had that exact experience. We needed to buy a new trimmer for the yard, right? Go to Weingarts and really got shown the electric options and the battery powered. And we did buy one because it was interchangeable with another equipment for the rechargeable battery. So it's interesting to me to see how the market is just moving in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to jump on that, right? Promote it, help it happen.
Yep.
And we can all make a trip to Weingarts and ask them about their electric stuff.
Well, and Tractor Supply and Lowe's and Myers. I mean, at some point it'd be good to really get some of these businesses, and maybe it's through our business association. And the same thing with the grocery stores. If there's some way to get to that upper level of management to sort of talk about the environment with these businesses, I think that would be a very helpful conversation.
Yeah, do we do anything countywide at event anymore? We used to have that one dream cruise up and down Jackson, which was like the most environmentally friendly thing. But, a lot of businesses were using it to promote stuff.
Yep.
They have a green promotion thing.
A green and organic Michigan products, Michigan foods, Scio Township, agriculture.
I was just at the Home Builders Fair a couple weekends ago at the fairgrounds. There's a lot of green promotion stuff going on there for new home construction and renovation.
Mm-hmm.
One idea is the township could promote green businesses. I was leaving Meyer and I noticed that the Chase Bank on the other side of Zebra Road has solar panels all over its roof. So businesses that take initiative, that go out of their way, that go the extra mile to do things like install solar panels or promote electrified products, whatever, advocating and promoting those businesses might be something we consider.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that today because Chase is doing that all over. The one by Westgate's also covered in solar panels, and I'm sure if I went looking, I'd find more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that's them making their own corporate goals,
Right. Right. Okay. Any other questions, discussions, barriers that people have come up with? Charlie?
Following up on the Jackson Road Cruise, we just got a date for that today. It's June 11th.
It's coming right up.
Oh,
Be here way too soon.
Yep. One other thought on the electric home tools, the yard tools, where some communities are really promoting them, especially on the leaf blower category. They're quiet.
Mhm.
Noise pollution.
Yeah, you'll be able to blow leaves any time of the day after we get our noise ordinance done. We'll have to.
Hey, on a different front, I just forwarded the group. I'm part of the 820 partner network, and I just forwarded the group an update from 820. And what really caught my attention was they're partnering with the county. This is one little sliver of so many things happening as part of 820, but they're partnering with the county on a free tree giveaway. So 2 free trees, you register a particular date to pick them up. What really caught my attention, we have been looking for hickory trees, which is a native Michigan tree, and they're very hard to find. Hickories are part of what you can choose from in this 2 tree giveaway. So I've sent you that information, but that's another example. I mean, I think it was Garrett's point earlier, open space, land preservation, tree canopy, tree planting. A canopy as a carbon sink is a very powerful asset as we try to sort of knock down a carbon load. So just wanted to share that thing from 820.
Yeah, just make sure that they're seedlings, or I think they're small, so make sure you have the deer protection.
I participated in one of those last year and got 3 little trees that are growing. But they're ferns, not ferns, fir trees. So that's good. And also with the trees, I mean, with heat, I mean, a lot of the bigger cities are also looking at it, trying to expand their parks because trees break up the heat canopy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the urban heat canopy, and if we get a little bit more developed, or make sure we got plenty of trees down on the Jackson Road corridor, you know, so that doesn't get too hot. So
yeah,
and we can enjoy our dream cruise then.
So which work group would have this topic? It's like what Garrett's saying is really important. Just a tree planting process that's ongoing in the township. Which group would that fall into?
So our group has as one of the recommendations to look at all of the zoning ordinance and planning department ordinance for that environmental lens, and to install low impact development ordinances, which would include changing parking lot regulations so that there is infiltration and tree canopy. So it would be our group. Probably could be resiliency too, but I think it's under our area.
It can be under probably both. And another example, like ordinances, is I remember several years ago when I was at Arbor Point, when IHA West went in, and they had to take out a bunch of trees to build that building.
Yeah.
So the township at that time had them offer a bunch of free trees as a counterweight, as a counterbalance. And I know my homeowners association, we took advantage because, you know, Emerald Ash Brewer, we had to replace a few trees. So.
But I think, isn't the zoning ordinance still have this regulation that for the number of trees you take down, you have to replant? Is that correct, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's more. And we're also getting to a point where we're trying to, for too long, there's been money banked, and it does no good in the bank. We need the trees planted. And so
Right.
we're really looking at doing that more regularly, so that the balance on that fund should be low. It should not be a savings account. The savings account is the trees. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot there would also work with the parks, or even the homeowners associations in the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
You could do what they do in Ann Arbor. When a tree goes down, they replace it.
Mm-hmm.
They plant a new tree.
Yep.
That's we can do something similar in the township. It's something as simple as that.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah, lots of ideas to.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out, I remember seeing something about Ann Arbor recently, that they were having some difficulty, that a lot of the trees they plant end up dying within the first year or two because of the lack of funding for actually going out and watering and taking care of them. And then a few days later, I happened across an article about, it's an organization called Strong Towns, and they were talking about how in small towns, it's a good idea to get your public, get your people so engaged with the process that you plant the trees and you say, okay, the residents in this neighborhood that's not too far away, you're going to take care of this group of trees. And they're going to spend the first year or two making sure that they're watered through droughts and all that sort of thing, if your town is small enough that it's difficult to fund caring for them. So I'm wondering if that's something in a township it might be valuable to tap into at some point.
That's exactly analogous. When you're going down the highway and you see a little sign that says, this next mile is sort of taken care of by the Kiwanis Club or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly analogous, right?
Mm-hmm. So just a thought.
Because you need them to survive. They
Mm-hmm.
can't do things for about 10 years. So, yeah. Okay. Anything else from other groups? Okay. And just sort of a little planning update. The zoning ordinance amendment committee is kicking off, and the first things that they're tackling will be EV ordinance. They're also looking at how we can sort of really look at a more uniform environmental overlay, if you will. We have things from Huron River Watershed. We have soils. We have different overlays right now, but they're all separate, and they're looking at how we can integrate them a little bit more. So it's, easier for everyone to identify areas, land that are prime for preservation, tree canopy, water recharge areas, et cetera. So looking at sort of the environmental things first, and along with that will be looking at our tree ordinance too. And I know some communities are going, right now we just have landmark trees, but there are some really looking at more a heritage tree that would be a significant, more significant older tree that maybe, development needs to work around, as opposed to, just kind of paying the penalty for taking the tree down. So those are some of the things that we'll be tackling first. Right. With that, let's see. We'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone that wants to contribute to the task force work tonight? Okay, great. Thank you. Then we'll go on, and Kathy, I think, emailed out the minutes. Did anyone have any additions or revisions to the minutes? Charlie?
I have to apologize. I guess I didn't realize that we were actually into the subgroup reports, that part of the agenda.
Yeah.
I guess there was no trigger there that made me think that. So.
Okay, you have something. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just pull up a couple things here. I'll try to be brief. 1 second. So the materials and waste subgroup had our last meeting last Thursday. We actually had a guest speaker, Megan Swartz from the Great Lakes Great Responsibility Group, which is based out of Alpena. And this group is setting a goal of removing 1 million pieces of trash from the Great Lakes Basin. And of course, that includes Scio Township. They work on establishing site captains in each area to put these cleanup events together. They actually have an app that helps also with this effort. They want to work with us basically to set up an event here in Scio Township, and we would then obviously contribute to their goal of 1 million pieces of litter collected. We'd also get more visibility with their promotion of this. So we discussed how we could make cleanup events known by announcements on the Scio website, in the newsletter, or on Facebook or Nextdoor. And Jeff is going to pursue that for us and look into how we can best implement that. Bob had contact with WRMA, which is the Washtenaw Regional Resource Management Authority. They are comprised or have authority over 7 municipalities in the county: Ann Arbor Township, Pittsfield, Scio, Ypsi, and the cities of Dexter, Saline, and Ypsi. He spoke with Tom Auth, who was the vice chair of the group, and also Mark Perry. He also got from them a very comprehensive spreadsheet that covers all of the different entities in the area that do recycling, what they take, what they don't take. It's really some really good information. The idea of WRMA is to look for cost savings that can be had by basically group buying, by going together on recycling. They're considering also recommendation for the members to increase penalties for recycle haulers mixing recycles and waste delivered to the landfills. There are significant costs, legal and otherwise, to enforce those penalties, and they need to make it less likely to occur. Tom also let us know that they have had similar conversations with Will Hathaway about WRMA and Scio recycling, which then brings us to a conversation that I had with Scio Supervisor Will Hathaway just last night. It was a very long meeting. We cover a lot of things, exchange a lot of ideas. And what came out of that is indeed the conversation with them and the conversation our subgroup is having are very parallel. We could clearly see that we have the same goals in mind, and we'd like to see the same outcomes. Because our task force is charged with making recommendations about improving materials and waste recovery, it seemed to make sense that the task force take charge of this conversation rather than some township officials that have many other things on their plate that are of higher immediate priority. Therefore, we've been handed the ball, so to speak. Our subgroup will negotiate with Recycle Ann Arbor to produce a proposal that we feel comes the closest to meeting our goals and is affordable. This proposal will include costs and timelines. It would then be turned back over to Scio to create a resolution for Board of Trustees consideration and hopefully approval. Our task force subgroup would also use a proposal to build our framework of recommendations to the Scio Planning Commission. As it turns out, we may be in the fortuitous position that by the time the PC is considering our recommendations, Several of them may already be in place. On the composting front, Jeff reported that Nancy Stone, who taught a master composter class through Ann Arbor Recreation Education, had lots of ideas to assist communities in encouraging home composting or even in setting up community composting sites. Nancy also shared that the Institute for Local Self-Reliance had an approach to setting up community composting, from training a few managers to develop a pilot compost site and eventually the operation of the site. Bob spoke with the at the Parks and Rec meeting April 5th about using one of our preserves, in particular Liberty Pond, becoming the pilot compost location, as it has the necessary areas for food scrap drop-off, composting, and most importantly, the poor soil condition from the previous use of the land. All agreed that it could be a great location. Jeff will take the lead on developing our home and community composting strategies. And on the household item reuse front, Karen has developed a spreadsheet that documents the agencies in Scio that fall under this category. Karen also reached out to Pam Boyd, who is actually watching tonight. Thank you, Pam, to engage her interest in adding a page to the website she's putting together for her Scio Township newsletter. It would be all about local services to help guide the community towards sustainable practices, where to recycle, reuse, compost, etc. So thank you, everybody.
That's great. You guys are doing a lot of detailed work. That's awesome.
I think, to be honest, I feel that we're really behind on our framework. I particularly look at the group, some of the work that the other groups have done in the minutes, and I almost find it intimidating. On the other hand, I think we've had a lot of conversation with various players around, and that seems to be our concentration so far. So I think now we can start moving into converting those conversations into things that we can put in that framework. Anybody in our group? Looks like maybe Jeff, did you want to add something?
No, I think you covered it well, Charlie. I saw Bob's hand up for a second.
No, that was applause.
Oh. Still learning this silly thing.
Okay, that's great. It'll be interesting to see how the county looks at materials and waste and so forth. So yeah, but that's great. Even to even identify a possible site. That's cool. Very cool. All right. Anyone else? Did that trigger anyone else's idea? Chris.
So I had not directly related, but somehow triggered the thought, what is the timeline for the Planning Commission to review and potentially approve the recommendations that each subcommittee is making, and then subsequently the Board of Trustees approving those recommendations?
Yeah, so what we're doing with these recommendations at this point is using them as a foundation to get more community engagement. So we're not, that's why we're kind of trying to move forward with the resolution to get an agreement on, yes, this is an urgent problem. Yes, we're willing to invest, time and our resources in climate action. And then, so the students will be doing our community engagement work. And then we see actually coming back probably in the fall and solidifying, what this plan is. And it will probably be, early next year, springtime, actually getting, an official approval, and whether or not it actually will end up going to the Board of Trustees for their actual adoption is really up to the Board of Trustees. The Planning Commission can recommend approval that the trustees approve it. It's right now, the way it's set up, it's not required. It's sort of like the master plan. The master plan, it will get incorporated in the master plan, But we're hoping that, we can get the leadership to also officially approve it. But that's why I sort of think the resolution is important, because it kind of paves the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it'll be a while. I get that. And we've discussed this a little. My question or concern is, how do we, get started on some of these, get started executing the recommendations before the board has, or the planning commission has approved them.
Yeah, and I think the planning commission already, I realize it's getting very dark. I in my reports to the planning commission and so forth, backlighting is not good. I think our drafts will go to the planning commission as kind of a progress report. And I know even with the zoning ordinance amendment committee, we're trying to do some things that, it makes sense to move ahead with some of these things. So I think, and Charlie, it sounds like you've gotten some authority to, put a plan together as well that has a lot more teeth in it than simple recommendations. So like I said, I think there's definitely urgency, and everything that we can do to implement and plan at the same time, does make some sense. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we do have, I'm going to turn on my other lights. Anyone have any, well, we'll go back to the minutes. Anyone have anything they need to add or revise? Okay, then can I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Moved by Bob Hyde and supported by Garrett Walter.
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Wave a hand. Any opposed? All right. Then anyone have any announcements? Okay. If you want to mark your calendars, the fair is going to be June 10th, Friday, right before our Jackson Road. And if we can get it together, the C students were thinking of trying to do some public engagement during the Jackson Road cruise too. So we'll see if we can get that together. Charlie.
I'm sorry, Jan, my audio went funny just as you said what was happening on June 10th.
Oh, yeah, the Ann Arbor Green Fair.
Oh, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good resource for folks, and hopefully, we can, I don't know if we can, if they'll promote that on the website or not, but that would be good to at least get an idea.
FYI, Jan, I will have a table there.
Oh, great.
Happy Planet Running, so come on by and talk trash.
Yeah, the 2030 district will too. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I guess I should announce the township submitted a grant for, it's a community energy management grant. It's working its way through the paperwork approval process, but they said they approved it in concept. So there's just a bunch of paperwork to do, and it will be doing some commissioning work on the township hall and replacing LED lights in the township hall, or replacing the fluorescent lights with LEDs, and also looking at a plan for replacing 3 of the rooftop units with a couple of heat pump options, and comparing that to high efficiency gas options. So, moving ahead with some of those township operations things. And also they're working on putting together an RFP for the solar for the fire station. So good updates there. All right. Anyone else have anything they want to announce? Great. All right, then, any last words from our CES team? No? All right.